All right, welcome back, guys. And we're going to just make a quick video talking about my thoughts on the new news that has been breaking about the college football playoff, sticking with 12 teams for the 2026 season. I'm going to give you my thoughts, what some of the new things that are going to be happening that have people discussing some of these cloak and dagger changes that are being made to next year, why I don't like them, and what are we even doing with this college football postseason this time. So thank you guys for joining in. Let's go ahead and get started. So before we get into the news that just broke, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on over the past year or so in terms of restructuring the CFP yet again. There have been some conversations about whether or not to expand the CFP field from 12 to either 16 or even 24 teams. Recently, the conference commissioners got together. They signed a memorandum of understanding, which basically said that they are okay with the Big Ten and the SEC guiding them through the restructuring of the CFP format. There's a lot of fear that, again, if we don't do what those conferences say, they're going to take their ball and they're going to go start their own playoff or whatever. So you can agree with it, disagree with it, but that's exactly what's going on. And so now it's been the conversation between the two commissioners, Tony Petitti from the Big Ten and Greg Sankey from the SEC, on how to restructure the playoff. And right now, Petitti's wanting to go to 24 teams with guaranteed amount of teams per conference. And Greg Sankey is okay with the idea of going to 16, but doesn't really want to commit to anything to 24 teams. And Petitti from the Big Ten doesn't want to go to 16 unless he knows that Greg Sankey's going to commit to doing 24 later on. So with all the TV deals and the structure and everything like that, ESPN being the sole broadcaster of this playoff format, they instituted a deadline for these conferences to figure out their playoff format, and they couldn't get anything figured out, so we're going to do at least one more year of 12 teams. All of that is fine and dandy. That's sort of where we're at and why there's continuous conversations. But you know that as things continue to break every single year, they're always going to find little things to tweak. And there's a couple of new things that they added in there for this year that I think has quite a few fans up in arms. I don't know why we're all surprised, but it's good to talk about. So the first one is what's getting, I think, the most buzz, and that is the idea that if Notre Dame is ranked in the top 12, then they are now guaranteed a spot in the playoff bracket. I disagree with this. I think I am with everybody else who thinks that this is a bad idea, but it's not anything new. And so I don't feel like I want to waste too much breath on this. We've been down this road before. There were concessions made to Notre Dame too with the BCS, and it's just never going to change. I don't know why Notre Dame continues to get all this preferential treatment just because they don't decide that they want to get in a conference. I'm not even saying that they need to get in a conference, but I actually like the first year where they said, yeah, Notre Dame, you can be in, but you're not going to be guaranteed a top 4 seed. And I think something similar needs to happen, but now they're just moving them in. And I think what has me the most bothered about it is that it just gives one more variable for the CFP to consider when they're ranking these teams, especially in that final week. I mean, it's bad enough that they're doing all of this cloak and dagger stuff behind the scenes and making Notre Dame think that they're going into the playoffs all the entire year and then shuffling them out. Now it's going to be even worse, where it's like, if we feel like we need to squeeze other teams in there, if we feel like there's a conference champion that could kick out the number 11th ranked team because Notre Dame now has to be in, they're going to move Notre Dame back to 13. You can disagree with me, but that's what they're going to do. So that's why also it doesn't really bother me as much, because this whole corrupt, and I'm not saying anybody individually is being corrupt, but just this whole system is just ridiculous. And so let's just pile that on. Okay. So that's not the one that has me up in arms. What has me up in arms is the next thing that they are now changing, where it is now not just the top 5 ranked conference champions get an automatic bid in. It is now the Power 4 conferences get their conference champion in, and then the top ranked group of 6 conference champion. And I just don't get how the group of 6 doesn't start filing complaints or lawsuits or anything else like that, explaining why their conferences are treated as less than. I'm not naive. We know that they are not as good of conferences. But it was always just kind of implied there, but now they're coming out and directly saying it. You don't matter as much. You're not as good as us. So even if you have a ranked conference champion ahead of one of our Power 4, too bad. If your second one is ranked higher, too bad. And I had the ESPN article up. I wouldn't say that this is your greatest source of truth, but just pulling up the details in what they did, I found myself thinking that this paragraph was pretty funny. So, although the number of teams in the field will remain the same this fall, there will be some adjustments to how some are included next season. The Power 4 conference champions will be guaranteed spots in the 12-team field, along with the highest ranked conference champion from the group of 6, which now includes the new look Pac-12. Notre Dame will also be a lock for the playoff if it finishes in the selection committee's top 12. The next paragraph's the one that's the best. Had those rules existed this season, both ACC champion Duke, 7-5 Duke, and Notre Dame would have qualified for the playoff, and number 10 seed Miami, which played for the national title, would have been excluded. That's all accurate and correct, but you can just see there, and I don't know if Heather Dinich intentionally left this out or if she just wanted to make a point about Miami, but it just looks bad when you don't include who the other team would have also been left out. The sentence should have said, and number 10 seed Miami, which played for the national title, and who was it? Was it 21? I don't remember. 21 ranked James Madison, who was also ranked higher than Duke, would have been left out. They don't even include the sentence of who the other team was. And that's what has me the most up in arms. What has me the most up in arms is that these giant Power 4 conferences who can't get their crap together, who can't get their conference alignment, their schedules, their tiebreakers, their postseason figured out, because they can't do that, now they're just guaranteed, well, because we can't figure that out, we're just going to legislate into the CFP rules that will just make sure that those conference champions get in, even if they're ranked lower than any other group of 6 teams. And that's what I just think is so disappointing. Again, it's hard to watch this sport over and over and over continuously get things wrong. I think that I've mentioned this in videos before. We need to go to 24 teams. We just need to let all of the conference champions in and put them in the first round, the week right after normal conference championship games. Let them be the tune-up games for these bigger conferences. And you might see 1 or 2 upsets. But I'm telling you, I think Oregon loved being that number 5 seed more than the 4 seed. I'm not saying Texas Tech would have beaten Oregon if the things were reversed. But do you think there's some truth to if Texas Tech would have hosted James Madison and had that tune-up game, then they would have been able to play a little bit better against Oregon rather than wait 3 weeks. I know we have a small sample size of just 2 seasons, but when 7 of your 8 first-round bye teams don't win their first game, I think it's important. And so if you're worried, people will say to me, well, now you're just devaluing the regular season. I'm saying we already have cupcake games from all these Power Four teams, anyways. So, and every now and then you get an upset. So, what's the point in just eliminating one of those cupcake games? Put it at the end of the season, call it the playoff, and also they need to get the playoff scheduling right. It's so hard to stay engaged if you're not a fan of one of the playoff teams. And maybe this is just anecdotal, this is just me speaking, but it's really hard to stay engaged with so much stuff going on with the holidays and everything like that, just on top of that. But then just such long gaps in between these games, especially between the first round and the second round. Yeah, it's just, they have to figure that piece out. There's no reason why their postseason with only 12 teams needs to last a month and a half long. And speaking of just having it hard to be engaging, I just share an example with the NFL. Whether the 49ers are good, whether they're bad, I am engaged with that sport. I'm engaged with the playoffs. Whether they are out in the first round or they make it all the way to the Super Bowl. And it's because there's this structure that makes sense. There's parity. There's the opportunity to be able to go from worst to first. And I know you're not going to get all of that with college football, but we're getting closer to that with NIL and with all of these other things. Some of these other programs like Texas Tech, BYU, Indiana, who just won it, you're going to get some teams like this, if you have the right leadership, that they may be able to make it happen. And so with that, you got to level up your formatting. I think in a next video, I don't want to add it to this one because I feel like this video is already getting a little bit long. But maybe in next week's video, I want to talk about some of the stuff that the Pac-12, even though there's like 8-9 teams, what they are considering as far as their final remaining conference game. Because they only have 7 teams, and so they want an 8-conference game. And so what do you do? Do you do another home and home with a rival? I don't really like that, but they're going to talk about this other idea about maybe doing like a flex game where you try and ensure that you're like your own little mini conference playoff. I like the idea. We'll talk a little bit more in detail maybe in next week's video. But you have to level up your product in terms of having it make sense and be fair and not have it all be subjective. And what they are doing right now with adding these things, it's not surprising. It's not new. They're always finding ways to squeeze out the smaller schools. And it's just a matter of time before I might be hyperbolic saying this, but it's just a matter of time before they say, okay, our group of 6 person, because you didn't play a good enough schedule, you're just always going to be locked in to the 12 seed. They might go to 16 and 24 and that, but it'll be, you're just gonna, even if you're ranked 13th, you didn't play that good of a schedule, so we're gonna make you be the 16 seed. It's gonna happen. They're going to find a way to continue to do that. So let me know what you guys think. Do these new things that they're putting into the playoff, does that bother you? Is it not surprising for you? Is it surprising for you? Let me know in the comments what you really think. Also, again, I like to hear what other people's thoughts on how they would structure the playoff format and how that would all work. But thank you again for jumping on this video with me. If you are liking this content, please like and subscribe. Trying to get more content out there and trying to get it in front of more people. So I really do appreciate the support. And until the next time, guys, take care.